My name is Megan, and I trusted my sister with everything, especially the savings meant for my daughter's future. But last week, in the middle of my own living room, she looked me straight in the eye and laughed. "Your kid doesn't need private school, Megan. Get over yourself." That was the moment I realized. Sometimes the deepest betrayal comes gift-wrapped in family. Before I share how I quietly fought back and got justice, tell me, where are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments, because what happened to me could happen anywhere. And trust me, you'll want to stay until the end. Charlotte, North Carolina, a place where everyone knows everyone's business and people talk about loyalty more than they practice it. It was a sticky summer evening, the kind where ceiling fans do more harm than good. My daughter Lily was upstairs doing her summer reading, the same book she'd already annotated with pink tabs and hopeful doodles. I was folding laundry on the armrest of our sunken couch when Ashley, my older sister by 4 years, showed up with her usual breezy confidence and designer sandals she swore were on clearance. Ashley and I have always had different definitions of need. I need to pay the electric bill. She needs a fresh set of Instagram pics from Disneyland. She flopped onto the couch, phone in hand, laughing at something her youngest had just texted. "So," I started carefully, folding another towel, "did you have a chance to send back the tuition money?" That's when it happened. Ashley slid her sunglasses to the top of her head, that familiar smirk stretching across her face. "Oh, right, about that." My stomach dropped before she even said the words. "We used it for the Disneyland trip. The boys really needed it. You should have seen their faces on the Star Wars ride. Priceless." I stopped folding. My hands froze mid-towel. I blinked, hoping I had misheard. "I gave you that money for Lily's tuition," I said slowly. "For Brookdale, you said you'd hold it until I sent the check." Ashley gave a small laugh like I'd told a harmless joke. "Megan, your kid doesn't need private school. She's smart. She'll be fine in public like the rest of us." I stared at her. The laundry tumbled off my lap, forgotten. "Brookdale isn't about status," I whispered. "It's about safety. It's about opportunity. You know what it took for me to even get her considered for that place." Ashley rolled her eyes. "You're so dramatic. Honestly, it's exhausting. Lily's what, 10? She doesn't even know what Brookdale is. You should focus more on being present than on your dreams of being that mom." That mom. She spat the words like a curse. The air in the room thickened. I could hear the creak of the old ceiling fan, the soft ticking of the microwave clock, and my own pulse roaring in my ears. I didn't say another word. What could I say? I had trusted her. I had believed her. And in return, she had taken the very foundation I was trying to build for Lily and poured it into roller coaster tickets and mouse ears. Ashley stood up, brushing invisible lint off her shorts. "Anyway, I gotta run. Soccer practice." She was out the door before I could find my breath. I didn't cry. Not right then. Instead, I sat back down and folded the rest of the laundry in silence, each crease of the fabric a bitter little prayer. What would you do if your own sister threw away your child's future and told you to get over it? Let me know in the comments. And make sure you're subscribed, because this story, it's just getting started. That night, after Lily had gone to bed and the dishwasher hummed quietly in the background, I sat at her tiny desk in the corner of our shared living room. It's pink and chipped, the surface scratched from years of glitter projects and math worksheets, but to me, it's sacred. It's where dreams are built, one crayon doodle and spelling word at a time. I pulled out the glossy brochure for Brookdale Academy from between the pages of a cookbook I rarely had time to open. I'd been hiding it there for months, afraid to wrinkle it, afraid to jinx it. On the front was a photo of brick buildings draped in ivy and smiling kids who looked like they were already halfway to a better life. Brookdale wasn't just a school. It was a promise, a door. And I'd spent every spare dollar I had to make sure Lily had a shot at walking through it. I traced the edge of the paper with my thumb, fighting back the burn behind my eyes. Then I whispered, so softly I barely heard it myself, "You will have a better life." Not maybe. Not someday. Will. The laptop wheezed as it powered on, its fan louder than I remembered. The Wi-Fi was spotty again, thanks to me downgrading our plan to save for tuition. But after a few reloads, I was staring at the Brookdale Academy financial aid page. "Scholarships," I murmured aloud, clicking. "Grants. work study programs, community sponsorships. I didn't even know what half of the terms meant, but I wrote them all down in a spiral notebook Lily had once used for spelling practice. Over each blue-lined page, I scrawled notes like a woman possessed. It felt almost criminal to be dreaming again so soon after being knocked down. But sometimes when people crush your plans, it reveals something stronger underneath: resolve. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I searched. Low-income scholarships for private school North Carolina. Then, single mother education grants. Then, what to do if a family member steals education money. That last search stung more than I'd admit. Around midnight, the screen began to blur. My head hurt, my eyes ached, but I couldn't stop. Every time I thought about Ashley sipping margaritas with Goofy while Lily quietly skipped snacks at school to avoid asking for lunch money, I dug in harder. I looked across the room at her, Lily, sleeping on the pull-out sofa bed we shared. Her arm flung over a worn, stuffed unicorn. Her mouth slightly open. No clue what had just been taken from her. Still safe, still dreaming. I promised myself she'd never find out what Ashley did, not unless we failed. And we weren't going to fail. A soft knock at the front door startled me. I froze. No one visits this late. I tiptoed across the room and peered through the peephole. It was Jasmine, my coworker from the diner. She looked tired, her scrubs half untucked, but held a paper bag and 2 styrofoam cups in hand. "I saw your light was still on," she said when I opened the door. "Figured you hadn't eaten." Brought lo mein and tea. I hesitated. "Girl, don't make me stand here looking weird on your porch," she added with a tired smile. We sat on the floor, eating straight from the containers. She didn't ask what was wrong. Jasmine always knew how to wait. Eventually, I said it out loud. "Ashley used Lily's tuition money for a Disneyland trip." Jasmine blinked once. "You're kidding." "I wish I was." "She knew what it was for." I nodded. "Said Lily doesn't need private school. That I should get over myself." A beat of silence. Then Jasmine, with all the righteous fury only a best friend can summon, muttered, "She's lucky I wasn't there. I'd have turned that Mickey Mouse trip into a missing persons report." Despite everything, I laughed. Jasmine leaned back against the couch. "Look, Meg, you know I love you, but you can't carry all this alone. You're one person. You're already working 2 jobs. Let someone help." "I don't want to air my dirty laundry," I said, biting my lip. "Especially not online." "What if it's not dirty laundry? What if it's just laundry?" She shrugged. "I've seen folks raise thousands through crowdfunding, grants too. Let people show up for you for once." I didn't answer right away. The idea of going public, of turning my pain into a pitch, it made me feel vulnerable, exposed. But then I thought of Lily, her shy smile, her quiet brilliance. I reached for my notebook again and started a new list: crowdfunding, local church sponsorships, education foundations, Jasmine's grant idea. Because maybe Jasmine was right. Maybe silence wasn't strength this time. Maybe it was time I started whispering a little louder, just loud enough to be heard. The next morning at the diner, I moved slower than usual, less because of the late night and more because of the weight in my chest. Folding napkins in the back room, I kept replaying Jasmine's words. "Let someone help." It echoed in my head like a dare I wasn't ready to take. I'd spent most of Lily's life doing the opposite, keeping our heads above water by myself. Letting someone in, that was a whole other kind of risk. Still, the conversation had lit a tiny match inside me. And once you've seen a spark, it's hard to pretend the room is still dark. On my lunch break, I tucked myself into the far booth and pulled out my phone. I opened a blank note and typed a title, Lily's Future, then stared at the blinking cursor like it might tell me what to say. I didn't want to post some sob story. I didn't want pity, but I needed a way forward. "Hey!" Jasmine slid into the booth across from me, unwrapping a sandwich with one hand, already in full multitask mode. "You thinking about it?" she asked casually, like we weren't standing on the edge of something huge. I nodded. "I started writing it out, but I keep deleting everything." Jasmine chewed, then said through a mouthful, "Start with the truth. You're a mom. You want better for your daughter, that's it. Doesn't need to be fancy." I tilted my screen toward her. "Would you read it?" She did, slowly, thoughtfully. At one point, she paused and blinked harder than usual. When she finished, she nodded once. "Post it. Just like that. Just like that." My hand trembled slightly as I copied the text into a community scholarship forum's submission box. Then I bookmarked 3 grant applications Jasmine had found and emailed a local church program she mentioned might help with school sponsorships. I didn't launch a full GoFundMe, not yet, but I was opening the door. A crack, a whisper of light. Back at home that evening, Lily was on the floor, her head bent over a workbook, her lips mouthing words as she scribbled answers. The little lamp next to her flickered with warmth, softening the shadows cast by our worn furniture. "How was school?" I asked. She didn't look up. "Fine, we did the writing pretest today." "Oh yeah, what did you write about?" She shrugged, but I could tell she was proud. "They said to write about something important to us, so I wrote about you." My breath caught. "You wrote about me." She nodded, still pretending to be nonchalant. I crouched next to her and pulled a pencil out of her messy bun. "You didn't have to do that." "I know, but I wanted to." And just like that, I remembered why all of this mattered so much. Not for status, not for revenge, not even for pride, for her. 3 days later, the back office phone rang while I was refilling ketchup bottles. I barely heard it over the lunch rush. Jasmine stuck her head in and shouted, "Meg, it's for you, it's Brookdale." Time stopped. I practically ran through the kitchen, ignoring the fryer alarm blaring behind me. "Hello. Hi, is this Megan Cates?" Yes, this is she. This is Mrs. Lang from Brookdale Academy. I'm calling to follow up on Lily's placement test. I wanted to let you know she scored in the top 1%. She's officially been shortlisted for the state scholarship." I leaned against the wall, hand pressed to my chest. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "Did you say she?" "She's in the top 1%, Ms. Cates. Your daughter is exceptional." I couldn't speak. I couldn't even cry. I just nodded into the silence, my heart thudding so loud it drowned out the world. After I hung up, I stood there for a full minute, the receiver still warm in my hand. Then I ran, out of the diner, down the street, through the screen door of our apartment. Lily was on the couch, reading. I didn't even take off my apron. I scooped her up, crushed her to my chest. "You did it, sweetheart," I whispered into her hair. "You did it." She blinked at me. "Did what?" "You're getting the scholarship." Her eyes widened. Then her whole face lit up like the sun. We danced around the tiny kitchen, laughing, crying, knocking into the chairs, and barely noticing. For that moment, nothing else mattered. Not bills, not Ashley, not the worry or the work ahead. Just us, just joy. It wasn't over. But for the first time in weeks, the weight had shifted. We weren't begging for a future anymore. We were building one. Brookdale Academy looked exactly like the pictures in the brochure, but somehow more unreal. Red brick buildings framed by oak trees older than my apartment complex. Clean-cut students in navy blazers clustered near the courtyard fountain. Their laughter bright and easy, like they'd never known what it was like to share a bedroom with a leaking ceiling. I clutched Lily's test results in one hand, my phone in the other, waiting in the small main office while a secretary with perfect posture and pearl earrings offered me mint tea. Tea. I wanted to laugh. The last time someone offered me something in a cup, it was day-old coffee at the diner, and that came with a side of unsolicited parenting advice. A few minutes later, a woman stepped out from the hallway. Tall, dark-skinned, dressed in a soft gray pantsuit. She extended her hand. "Megan, I'm Principal Hewitt. Thanks for coming in." Her voice was warm, professional, not the type that had time for pity. I liked her instantly. We sat in her office, more books than furniture, a photo of her own daughter on the desk, and she gestured toward the folder I still held. "I read Lily's essay, and her test scores are extraordinary, but I want to hear from you." "About her, you, why this school?" I hesitated, then glanced down at my hands. Calloused, tired, no manicure, no rings, just the evidence of 100 split shifts and 2 decades of surviving. "I want her to be seen," I said finally. "Not just as a smart girl, but as her. Lily's the kind of kid who notices when a classmate doesn't get picked for dodgeball and pretends she's tired so they can be partners. She reads at night with a flashlight even when she's exhausted. She asks why our ceiling drips when her friends' houses don't." Principal Hewitt smiled. "Sounds like empathy runs deep in her." I nodded. "And I don't want that to get swallowed by a system that doesn't have time for nuance." For a second, the principal didn't say anything. Then she leaned forward. Megan, we want her here, but more than that, we want families like yours here. We want Brookdale to reflect the world, not just a corner of it. My throat tightened. You'll need to complete the full financial aid paperwork and scholarship essays, she added. It's a lot, but I think you're ready for that. I'll do whatever it takes, I whispered. She stood and extended her hand again. Then we'll walk through it together. As I walked back to my car, a warm breeze stirred the trees and scattered golden leaves across the parking lot. Something in me shifted. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't apologizing just for existing in a world that hadn't made room for people like us. I wasn't just allowed here, I was wanted. That night, I decided to tell my mother, not because I thought she'd throw a party, but because part of me, some stubborn, still hopeful part, needed her to at least pretend to care. Gloria, my mother, lived just 15 minutes away, in the same ranch-style house she and my father bought before the ink dried on their wedding certificate. He passed 5 years ago, and I still wasn't sure if her silence ever softened after that. I brought Lily with me. She'd worn her best dress, a faded floral number with one sleeve starting to unravel, but she looked so proud. She might as well have been wearing a crown. My mother was at the kitchen table when we walked in, pencil tucked behind her ear, the crossword from that day's newspaper in front of her. She looked up. "What's this?" "I wanted to share something," I said, motioning for Lily to sit. "Brookdale called. Lily's test results came in. She's being considered for a full scholarship." Silence, then a small sniff from Gloria as she filled in a clue. "They still teach the ABCs at public school, don't they?" My face stayed neutral, but my heart dropped. "It's not about ABCs," I said quietly. "It's about opportunity, environment, safety. Private school's not magic, just costs more." She set her pencil down. "And I suppose Ashley's the villain again in this story." I flinched. "This isn't about Ashley, it's about Lily." Gloria turned to Lily. "Well, good luck then." That was it. No smile, no hug, no praise. Lily looked at me, confusion flickering in her eyes. I forced a smile. "Thanks for listening, Mom." We didn't stay long. Back in the car, Lily finally asked, "Did Grandma seem mad?" I hesitated, then reached back and brushed a curl from her face. "No, honey, Grandma's just not used to seeing big things happen to small families." She nodded, slowly processing. I turned up the music to distract her, but inside I was already rewriting the script of my expectations. My family didn't have space for pride in us, so I would build our own, brick by brick, word by word, scholarship by scholarship. The nights started getting longer, not because of the season, but because of what they held. Each evening, after my shift at the diner and my second job cleaning offices downtown, I'd come home to find Lily hunched over the kitchen table, writing. Sometimes she didn't even notice I'd come in. Her head would be bowed, pencil tapping against her cheek, the tip of her tongue poking out in that way she did when deep in thought. The Brookdale essay prompts were no joke. They asked things like, "What does resilience mean to you? And how do you plan to make an impact in your community?" She was 10, but her answers, Lord. One night I came home, dropped my bag by the door, and walked over just as she was erasing something with determination. "Want to read me a paragraph?" I asked, pulling off my shoes. She shrugged, shy at first, then turned the notebook toward me. I wrote, "Resilience is when someone tells you no, but you keep going because your heart says yes. My mom says we come from a long line of women who do hard things quietly. I want to be loud about my dreams, not because they're better than someone else's, but because they were harder to reach." I pressed a hand to my mouth. She looked up nervously. "Is it too much?" I knelt down and kissed her forehead. "No, baby, it's just right." Later, over greasy takeout from the corner shop, I watched her chew with tired eyes, feet swinging off the chair. "You know," I said, "when I was your age, I wanted to be a writer." "You still can," she said without hesitation, licking sauce from her fingers. I chuckled. "Well, these days, I mostly write checks that bounce and shopping lists I forget at home." "But you tell stories all the time," she argued. "To your customers, to me." I looked at her then, this little girl who somehow believed in me more than half my family ever had, and felt something unfamiliar. Hope. Real, growing hope. Even in exhaustion, even in chaos, even in the flickering light bulb above our table. We were building something. I printed the final application materials at the library. I had to borrow Jasmine's old flash drive because mine had mysteriously disappeared months ago, likely during one of Ashley's infamous borrowing visits. I labeled the folder Lily Brookdale Final in all caps like that would somehow guarantee success. At the counter, the librarian scanned each page before handing them back with a smile. "Your daughter must be something special," she said. "She is," I replied, stuffing the papers into a large envelope. "She really is." That night, after Lily went to bed, I stayed up folding uniforms and packing my cleaning supplies. My second job didn't start until 9 p.m., but I needed every dime. I slipped out quietly, letting the screen door close softly behind me. The city was quieter at night, but the silence didn't bother me anymore. I liked walking through it knowing what I was fighting for. At the office building, I scrubbed bathroom sinks until my hands were raw, the scent of bleach lingering in my nostrils. Every now and then, I'd pause to text myself reminders. Follow up on local grant recheck submission deadlines, ask Jasmine about free notary services, and under all of that, I typed one more line. Keep going. Even if it's quiet. 2 weeks before the Brookdale deadline, I woke up to the buzzing of my phone. I was late. My alarm never went off. The diner's manager had already called twice. Groggy, I rolled over, grabbed my phone, and saw the bank alert first. "Urgent, your account has been temporarily frozen due to activity on a joint fund." What? I sat up straight, my heart hammered. I clicked the notification, my thumb fumbling. Joint fund, and then it hit me. Ashley. Years ago, when I helped her get a payday loan refinanced, we'd opened a temporary joint savings account so she could get better terms. She swore she'd remove her name once it was paid off. Of course, she never did. And I, too busy juggling bills and Lily and overtime, forgot. But the money in that account, it wasn't just grocery or rent money, it was everything. The balance I'd scraped together for final tuition processing, the postage for scholarship submissions, the bus tickets to school interviews, it was all in there. Gone. Frozen. I scrambled out of bed, called the bank. My voice shook as I tried to stay calm. "I'm the primary account holder. I didn't authorize any activity." The woman on the other end was polite but robotic. "I understand, Ms. Cates, but your sister requested a verification update, and our system flagged the account. Until the discrepancy is resolved, we're required to suspend transactions for security. But you can see I've been the only one depositing. The funds are mine." "I understand, but we'll need her to sign a release, or you'll need to submit a formal dispute. Processing can take up to 14 business days." 14 days, I had 11. When I hung up, I stared at the faded wallpaper behind our kitchen counter. It used to have little bluebirds. Now it just looked tired, peeling in the corners. I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, "This could ruin everything." Lily patted in a moment later, rubbing her eyes. "Mom, you okay?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, sweetie, just a grown-up thing. You ready for school?" She nodded, then paused. "Did someone do something bad?" Kids always know. "Sort of," I admitted, "but I'll fix it." After I dropped her off, I drove to work on autopilot. The clink of coffee cups and the chatter of morning regulars blurred around me. Jasmine clocked my mood the moment I walked in. "You look like someone kicked your hope down a flight of stairs." I didn't answer, just handed her the order pad and mumbled, "Can you cover table 3? Later, while we wiped down menus in the back, she cornered me. "What happened?" I told her. The account, Ashley, the freeze, the deadline. She listened, didn't blink once. Then she set down the rag and said flatly, "Meg, you know I've got you, right? I'm not asking for. I didn't say you were." She pulled out her phone, tapped a few buttons, then looked up. "I just sent you what you need, enough to cover what's frozen. I don't want it back. This is my investment in Lily's future." I shook my head, overwhelmed. "Jas, I can't." "You can, you will. And when Lily's valedictorian and giving her big speech, you better let me ugly cry in the front row." I didn't cry right then. But later, when I was alone in the supply closet with the paper towel rolls, I did. Because it wasn't just the money, it was the trust. The love. The fact that someone finally was showing up for me without an asterisk or a debt attached. I texted her that night, "Thank you. I'll pay you back the second this is over." She replied in all caps, "You better not." The night before the application was due, our apartment looked like a scene out of a war movie, minus the dramatic music and slow-motion explosions. Instead, it was just Lily and me. surrounded by papers, envelopes, sticky notes, and an empty pizza box that smelled faintly of relief. She sat cross-legged on the couch, biting her pencil, a draft of her essay gripped in one hand. I was at the tiny kitchen table, sorting documents into labeled folders, checking and rechecking every line item like my life depended on it. Because, in a way, it did. Our dining light flickered overhead. The bulb had been threatening to die for weeks, and I hadn't replaced it. Tonight, I decided to let it be. Its soft stutter felt oddly in sync with our exhaustion. "You sure we have everything?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I triple-checked," I said, not looking up. "But I'll check again just to be safe." She laughed quietly. "You always say that." "That's because I'm always right." "You mean anxious," she corrected with a smirk. I set down my pen and looked at her. "No," I said, "I mean careful. Careful moms make it to the finish line." She nodded solemnly. "So do determined daughters." God, this kid. I walked over, brushed her curls away from her face, and kissed her forehead. "You make me braver than I really am, you know that?" She grinned. "You make me feel like anything's possible." We sealed the last envelope together, her little hand pressing down hard while mine steadied the edges. "Want to come with me to the post office?" I asked. She shook her head, suddenly shy. I think I want to be surprised." I blinked, surprised myself. "Surprised?" "Yeah," she said, curling back into the couch. "I want to find out later, like when it happens, when it's real." Something about that hit me harder than I expected. Maybe because I understood her need to protect her hope, like it was something fragile that needed guarding from disappointment. "You got it," I said gently. "We'll keep it wrapped up in hope until it's ready to open." The next morning, I woke up early. Too early. After 4 hours of sleep and a dream where I somehow mailed the wrong child to the wrong school, I pulled on my coat and made the walk to the nearest mailbox. I could have waited until my lunch break, but I didn't want to risk it. I stood outside the box for a full minute before I dropped the envelope in. My hand lingered on the slot. This was it. No more edits. No more drafts. No more double-checking. Now it was in their hands, and all I could do was wait. That night, Lily waited up for me even though she had school the next day. When I walked in, my feet aching and my head pounding, she sat at the table with 2 paper cups of hot cocoa. The kind we make with water and fake marshmallows, but it always tastes like magic. "I saved you the one with the most mallows," she said, grinning proudly. I sat beside her, let my coat fall behind me. "You're going to do amazing things," I told her. She looked up. "Even if I don't get it." My heart clenched. "Especially then," I whispered. "Because the way you've worked, the way you kept going even when it was hard, that's what really matters. That's the stuff the world doesn't always reward, but it's what makes you unstoppable." She nodded. Then quietly she said, "I love you, Mom." I held her hand across the table. "I love you more than anything." We sat there for a while, sipping lukewarm cocoa, wrapped in the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty at all. Just full, of work, of worry, of wonder. And the tiniest flicker of something bigger, something that felt an awful lot like faith. For 5 whole days, I let myself breathe. Not relax, never that, but breathe. Just enough to let my shoulders drop from around my ears. Just enough to believe, for a second, that maybe we'd cleared the worst of it. Then came the call. It was a Tuesday. I was in the diner's back room folding napkins, the hum of grease and gossip buzzing from the kitchen. My phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I wouldn't have answered, but something made me grab it. "Miss Cates," said the voice on the other end. Polite, too polite. "This is she. This is Melissa from your credit union. I'm calling regarding some urgent account activity." I felt my stomach drop. "Is this about the freeze?" "No, ma'am," she said. "This is separate. We've received a hold order due to a flagged discrepancy involving joint account ownership and authorization." My throat went dry. "What kind of discrepancy?" "Apparently, an account connected to yours was part of a recent financial inquiry. The secondary holder, Ashley Cates, filed a claim disputing recent transactions. As a result, a temporary legal hold has been placed on the remaining funds. It includes both the shared and directly linked accounts." I gripped the edge of the table. "Wait, Ashley filed what? But she took the money. I've been the one making deposits for years." "I understand," Melissa said gently. Unfortunately, unless she withdraws the claim or you submit documentation for a formal override, the funds will be inaccessible for up to 30 days. 30 days. I leaned against the wall, suddenly lightheaded. I submitted Lily's application. We need the funds for follow-up travel. For interviews, documents, this was supposed to be done. I'm so sorry, Miss Cates. I ended the call and stood there, the phone still in my hand, the napkins forgotten. My pulse pounded in my ears, every beat a warning bell. My mind raced, not with next steps, but with the soundless scream of not again. After my shift, I sat on the curb behind the diner, legs trembling, apron still on. I texted Jasmine, "You up?" She responded in seconds, always, "What happened?" I called her, voice cracking the second she said hello. She froze it, I said. "Ashley, again, she filed a claim." I could hear Jasmine inhale sharply. "You've got to be kidding me." "She's still on the old account. I didn't think she'd do anything else. I thought she'd stay gone." "She won't stop until you make her," Jasmine snapped. "She's playing games because she knows it's easy for you to break." "I'm already broken," I whispered. "No, you're bruised. You're still standing." Silence. Then Jasmine said what I hadn't had the strength to say. "You want me to come over?" I nodded even though she couldn't see. That night we sat on my couch while Lily slept in our shared bed. Jasmine scrolled through her phone, then handed it to me. "There's an emergency education assistance grant through a local women's group. They can't give much, but they've covered interview travel before." "I can't ask you for more," I said. "You already—" "You're not asking," she cut in. "I'm offering. You and Lily didn't come this far to get blindsided now." I nodded, silent. "I mean, hell," she said, laughing darkly. "You're practically raising a future Supreme Court justice in a 2-room apartment and cleaning toilets to pay for her brilliance. You think some spiteful sister's gonna take that from her?" A laugh escaped me, tired and broken, but real. We started filling out the emergency grant form right there on the couch. Both of us hunched over my laptop, passing the trackpad back and forth like a lifeline. And somewhere between listing our monthly expenses and attaching Lily's test scores again, I realized something. I wasn't alone. I wasn't helpless. And this wasn't the end. By Friday morning, the panic had settled into something colder, something quieter. It's strange how quickly a person can shift from fight to freeze. One day you're chasing dreams like they're within reach, and the next you're just trying to keep the lights on while your sister plays financial puppet master behind the curtain. Lily didn't know yet. I kept her out of it, not because she couldn't handle the truth, but because I wanted her to sleep one more week without the weight of adult chaos clawing at her dreams. But the silence was starting to show. She asked why I canceled her ride to Brookdale's welcome brunch, why we skipped the Sunday library session where she was supposed to meet her future mentor. I said we were figuring some things out. She nodded, trusting, always trusting. That night I sat at the kitchen table with my head in my hands. I'd reread the grant response email 3 times. Denied. They were out of funds for the quarter. No emergency aid available. The envelope with the Brookdale final documents was still sitting near the toaster. We'd missed the interview prep session. The final confirmation deadline was 5 days away. Without access to my bank, I couldn't cover the background checks, document fees, and travel to the official enrollment day. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to block the path. Just like that, we were back at square one. I must have been sitting there for over an hour when Jasmine let herself in. She tossed her bag by the door like she always did, grabbed 2 sodas from the fridge, and dropped one in front of me. "What now?" she asked, not even bothering with pleasantries. I slid the email across the table. She read it, then set it aside and said nothing. Instead, she pulled out her phone and opened her banking app. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Solving a problem," she said simply. I shook my head immediately. "Jas, no, I told you what you already gave was too much. I can't." She cut me off without looking up. "This isn't a loan, it's not charity, it's an investment. I can't keep letting people rescue me." "You didn't let Ashley take your money," she snapped. "You trusted her and she betrayed you. That's not the same as accepting help. You didn't ask for this, and you don't have to apologize for wanting more for your kid." She pressed a few buttons, then showed me the transfer receipt. It was done. I covered my face with both hands, the tears coming fast now. Not out of weakness, but from the unbearable strength of being loved anyway. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered. She leaned back, crossed her arms. Because someday, Lily's going to win something big, real big, and when she gives that speech, I want her to say, "My mom never gave up and the people who loved her didn't let her." I reached across the table and gripped her hand. "I don't have words, Jasmine. You don't need words, just mail the forms." The next morning, I walked into the post office with the full packet in hand, documents, confirmations, and payment receipts all printed, checked, rechecked. The woman behind the counter looked up as I approached. "Brookdale Academy?" she asked, eyeing the label. I nodded. "Seen a few of those come through this week. Must be a big moment." I smiled, not wide, but deep. "It is," I said, "for more reasons than one." The letter came 3 days before Christmas. It was early morning, and I'd just returned from my cleaning shift, shoes wet from slush and hands numb from cold. Lily was still asleep. The apartment was quiet except for the ticking of the wall clock and the heater sputtering in protest. I found the envelope in the mailbox wedged between a fast food flyer and a bill I didn't want to open. It was thick, heavier than the others. The Brookdale crest shimmered faintly in the winter light, embossed across the corner in deep navy ink. My breath caught. I didn't open it, not yet. I carried it inside like it might fall apart if I held it wrong. I set it on the kitchen table and just stared. Then I made myself a cup of tea, the cheap kind that barely tasted like anything but ritual, and sat down. My fingers hovered over the seal. "What if it's a no?" I whispered into the empty room. "What if all of this, everything, was for nothing?" But my hands moved anyway. They always had. I peeled open the flap slowly, carefully. Inside was a packet, a letter on top. I read the first line, then the second, and then the words swam. "We are thrilled to inform you that Lily Cates has been awarded a full academic scholarship to Brookdale Academy and is invited to join the Honor Circle class of incoming students." I sat there for a full minute, the letter shaking in my hands, tears blurring every word. I cried without sound. Not because I didn't feel it, but because feeling it too loudly might have broken something in me I'd spent years gluing back together. Then I pressed the letter to my chest. She did it. We did it. I didn't tell anyone, not yet. Not Jasmine, not even Lily. I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and tucked it under the lace tablecloth like it was a secret gift waiting to be unwrapped. Because for once, I wanted to choose when the world got to know something precious. I decided I'd tell them on Christmas. We were all going to Gloria's house for dinner. Ashley would be there, too. Of course she would. Every year she brought her famous green bean casserole and her louder-than-necessary complaints about public school this, public school that. Every year she held court like it was her house and not Mom's. But this year something was different. This year I had something she couldn't spin. Not gossip. Not drama. Just facts. So I let Christmas come. I let Lily wear her new second-hand dress that we'd thrifted 2 months ago. The one she said made her feel a little bit like a lawyer and a little bit like a princess. I curled her hair while she recited lines from a science project she hadn't even turned in yet, already dreaming forward. At Gloria's, everything was as expected. Ashley was louder than the ham, complaining about teachers being lazy and school lunches being basically poison. Her kids sulked around the living room, faces buried in phones. Gloria hovered near the stove, pretending not to hear anything unless it could be turned into a crossword clue. Then over dinner, as Ashley launched into another tirade about the disaster that was public school, Lily did something I didn't expect. She quietly said, "I got into Brookdale." Just like that, not loud, not smug, just sure. The room fell silent. Ashley froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. "What?" she said, eyes narrowing. Lily turned to me, then back to the table. "I got a scholarship, full ride, and they invited me to their honor circle." Gloria finally looked up from her plate. "You what?" she asked, her voice cracking slightly. I reached into my bag, pulled out the envelope, and handed it across the table. "Read it," I said simply. Gloria adjusted her glasses and scanned the letter. Her face changed. Ashley leaned over her shoulder to see it for herself. Her expression started to twist into something familiar, disbelief, then disbelief weaponized, but it didn't land. Because this time the letter wasn't hearsay, it was proof. She sat back, fork untouched, and for once she said nothing. The table stayed quiet. Then Gloria did something she hadn't done in years. She clapped, once, then twice. And then she smiled, an actual smile. "Well," she said, clearing her throat, "it seems we have an honors student at the table." Lily beamed. Ashley stayed silent. And I let the moment breathe. Because for the first time in forever, I didn't have to raise my voice to be heard. The silence stretched long after Gloria folded the letter and placed it gently beside her plate. No one touched their food. Even the candles on the table flickered like they knew something unspoken had shifted in the room. Ashley leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. Her smirk, so reliable, so rehearsed, started to twitch at the edges. "That school's just for show-offs," she said finally, voice flat. "You think she'll fit in with all those fancy kids? She's not like them." Lily looked at me then. Her eyes asked if she should respond. I shook my head just once. This wasn't her fight. I turned to Ashley. My voice was calm, almost too calm. "Lily didn't need to be like them. They saw who she is. That's why they chose her." Ashley scoffed, but it landed wrong. It sounded hollow. "Sure," she said. "Because private schools are just lining up to give full rides to girls from two-bedroom apartments." I pulled the letter back in front of me and tapped it once. "They are when that girl scores in the top 1%, when she writes essays that make administrators cry, when she shows them resilience they can't teach in textbooks." Ashley opened her mouth again, but Gloria spoke first. "Enough," she said. That single word sliced through the tension. Ashley blinked. "Excuse me." "You heard me." Gloria set her fork down, the clink louder than it should have been. "This isn't about you or your bitterness. This is Lily's moment, and Megan's, and you won't ruin it." For a split second, I thought Ashley might explode. But instead, she stood up. Didn't slam her chair back. Didn't shout. She just looked around the table and saw what she wasn't used to seeing. No one agreeing with her. Not even Gloria. Especially not Gloria. Then, without another word, she picked up her casserole dish, still half full, and walked out. The front door closed behind her with a soft click. And just like that, the storm was over. The room held a strange peace. Lily sat straighter in her chair, her cheeks pink but proud. Gloria sipped her wine and didn't meet my eyes, but she didn't look away either. I glanced down at my plate, then looked around the table. Finally, I spoke. "No more fighting, just facts." Gloria didn't say anything. But she nodded. And in that small gesture, I understood everything I needed to. I didn't need anyone's permission to feel proud. I didn't need their applause. But now, finally, I had something better than their approval. I had their silence. The kind of silence that knew I was right and couldn't twist it. After dessert, store-bought pie and awkward small talk, Lily and I put on our coats. Gloria stopped us at the door. "I meant what I said," she told Lily. "I'm proud of you." Lily beamed. "Thanks, Grandma." Then Gloria looked at me. "Don't let her drag you back under," she said, almost too quietly. I blinked. "Ashley," she nodded. "You did what none of us could. You walked out of the mess and made something." I wanted to ask why now. Why she'd never said anything like that before, but maybe it didn't matter anymore. I didn't need to excavate her silence. I just needed to live above it. So I nodded once, pulled Lily close, and stepped out into the crisp winter night. Months later, the mornings feel different. Lighter somehow. The rush is still there, making sure Lily's hair is neat, her lunch is packed, that she hasn't left her flute on the couch again. But there's a steadiness beneath it now. A rhythm we earned the hard way. Brookdale is still a dream, but it's no longer something distant. It's her school now. Her hallways, her locker, her future. She's thriving. She's already won an award for a science fair project I didn't understand but clapped wildly for anyway. She joined a leadership club and was elected vice president after giving a speech on why kindness should be considered a kind of strength. The same kid who used to tiptoe into my bed after nightmares now walks into buildings full of strangers like she belongs because she does. And me? I still work 2 jobs. The bills didn't vanish. The ceiling still leaks when it rains too hard, but I sleep easier, laugh more, even take an hour on Sundays just to read. Not forms, not financial aid emails. A real book, one with chapters and plot twists and no formatting errors. Sometimes Jasmine comes over and we drink cheap wine and watch cooking shows we'll never recreate. She still refuses to let me pay her back. "You already did," she said one night, toasting me. "You reminded me what loyalty actually looks like." I don't talk to Ashley anymore. She hasn't tried to reach out either. And honestly, that's a blessing. There's peace in absence. Because when someone shows you, clearly and repeatedly, who they are, the real power isn't in proving them wrong. It's in walking away. My mother calls occasionally, short conversations. She asks about Lily. She never asks about me. That used to hurt. Now it just feels expected. And manageable. I don't need their approval anymore. I've got something better myself. I gave Lily a foundation, not of wealth, but of worth. And from that, she'll build her own life, not in my shadow, but in the light I fought to create. Sometimes when I walk past her bedroom and hear her talking excitedly on the phone with a classmate about a field trip or student council, I pause and just listen. Because that sound, that joy, it's what winning quietly sounds like. It's the sound of a life no longer held hostage by betrayal or shame or scarcity. It's the sound of dignity. And once you claim it, truly claim it, it doesn't need to shout. It just is.